Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to pop the hood on the U.S. government to see how the executive branch really works. You know, it's this huge, complicated machine, and we are going to break it down piece by piece.
Okay, let's just dive right in. Because, yeah, we focus a lot on the one person in the Oval Office, but the reality? Carrying out the laws of the United States is a job for millions of people. So how on earth is this massive team organized?
All right, to get a handle on this machine, we've got to start right at the center and then work our way out. So we'll kick things off with the president's most trusted teams, the folks they lean on for advice and, to run the daily operations of the government.
First up, you've got the cabinet. The easiest way to think about these folks is as the president's top advisors. Each member, who's usually called a secretary, runs a huge executive department. We're talking the Department of Defense, the Department of the Treasury, the big ones. They're picked by the president, but have to get the green light from the Senate.
Then there's this other super important group, the Executive Office of the President, or EOP for short. Now, unlike the cabinet, these people aren't running massive departments all over the country. Nope. Think of them as the president's personal support squad, working right there in the White House, handling everything from the national budget to national security.
And inside that inner circle, one job is kind of the linchpin, the White House Chief of Staff. This person is at the very top of the EOP, and really, they're the president's ultimate gatekeeper. They manage the White House staff and control who and what gets to the president. It is, without a doubt, one of the most powerful jobs in all of Washington.
So here's the key takeaway, the big difference between the two. You can see it right here. The EOP, it's all about direct, right-now support for the president's daily grind. The cabinet, though, they're like the CEOs of these giant government departments, focused on the big picture, long-term policy stuff happening all over the country. Okay, so let's move out to the next circle. This is where we see how all this structure builds into the giant federal bureaucracy that actually carries out the laws that Congress passes. This is where ideas turn into action.
And that engine room we're talking about, it's built around these 15 executive departments. Each and every one is in charge of a major area of government. They really are the backbone of how the whole federal system works and how it connects with all of us.
And listen, these are not just some names on a chart. We're talking about the heavy hitters here, some of the oldest, most powerful parts of the U.S. government. The Department of State handles all our relationships with other countries, while the Department of Defense, well, it oversees the entire U.S. military. These are massive organizations with a global footprint.
But, not everything the government does fits neatly into one of those 15 boxes. And that's where independent agencies come in. They're set up to handle very specific jobs and are often built to be a little bit protected from the day-to-day political winds blowing from the White House.
And I guarantee you know some of these. NASA, for example, was created to lead space exploration, a super specialized task, right? The CIA is all about intelligence gathering. And then you have others, like the Post Office, which kind of operates more like a business, or the FCC, which sets the rules for the entire communications industry.
So, who are the millions of people actually doing the work in all these departments and agencies? And maybe the more interesting question is, how did they get their jobs in the first place? Because let me tell you, the answer has changed a lot over American history. For a very long time, it was pretty much all about who you knew. It was called the spoils system. Basically, if you won an election, you got to hand out government jobs to your political buddies as a reward. Your qualifications weren't always the top priority. Your loyalty, that was what counted.
But that all came to a screeching halt with one landmark law. In 1883, Congress passed the Pendleton Act, and it completely flipped the script. It started moving the entire federal workforce away from political favors and toward a professional system based on merit.
And the difference between these two systems, it's night and day. The merit-based civil service we have now provides stability. Think about it. When a new president comes in, most government workers actually keep their jobs. That ensures there's continuity and expertise. It's a system built on the idea that what you know matters a whole lot more than who you know.
So, we've got this massive, professional workforce that's responsible for making policy happen. But how does it actually use that power? And more importantly, what's stopping that power from just running wild?
Okay, one really important concept to get how policy gets made is something called the iron triangle. Just picture this. You've got a government agency that handles farming, the congressional committee that oversees agriculture, and a big, powerful lobbying group for, say, the corn industry. Those three can team up and form this tight, mutually beneficial relationship to shape laws in a way that helps all of them out. And seeing these power structures really brings up a critical question, With all this influence packed into the executive branch, what are the limits? Well, that exact question was put to the test in a major way during a crisis that absolutely gripped the nation back in the 1970s. At the heart of it all was this concept called executive privilege. Now, the basic idea is that for a president to govern effectively, they need to be able to have honest, private conversations with their advisors. So this privilege is the power to keep those conversations secret.
And then Watergate happened. While investigators were digging into the break-in at the Democratic National Committee headquarters, they made a shocking discovery. President Richard Nixon had a secret taping system in the Oval Office. A special prosecutor immediately demanded he turn over those tapes as evidence.
Nixon said no, flat out refused. He argued that he had an absolute, unchallengeable right to keep his conversations private under executive privilege. It was a constitutional standoff, and the fight went all the way to the Supreme Court. And in a landmark, unanimous 8-0 decision, the court ruled against the president. They said yes, executive privilege is a real thing, but it is not absolute. The court made it crystal clear the need for evidence in a criminal trial outweighs a president's claim to secrecy.
The case, United States v. Nixon, became a powerful reminder of one of our country's bedrock principles. It set a massive precedent that even the President of the United States has to answer to the rule of law. A short time later, Nixon resigned. So this whole enormous structure, from the president's closest advisors down to the millions of federal workers, it's all designed to serve the public. But the question that people still debate today is it a well-oiled machine that gets things done for the public good, or has it become a tangled mess of red tape that slows everything down? And that really is the central question in how we view our government.